we go.
Good. Howdy everybody, how y'all doing? We're coming at you from Austin, Texas at a wonderful festival known as South by Southwest, and we're here with an amazing person. He's an actor, he's a director, he's a writer, and he's been making millions of people laugh all around the world. Kevin Smith, how you doing?
I've been good, man. That intro that made me feel so special. I don't know about millions. I've made a few people laugh around the world and whatnot, but millions, boy, I don't know. That makes me feel like McDonald's. And I feel like McDonald's most of the time because my boobs are filled with chicken McNuggets. That's how you get perfect round ones like this, kids.
Right.
I'm just curious about how to get. I assume most people watching this would want to know, how do you get a body like his?
Right.
Either that or like, how do you get a body of work like his? Probably more.
I believe the PC term is moobs, by the way, I believe.
Moobs. I go for
that's how it goes.
tits. You know what I'm saying? Like, just that's what they are. Call them what they are.
True.
I don't believe in dressing it up.
Right.
Put it right on Front Street. Shame, I call them. Shame 1 and shame 2.
And would you prefer to have like a millions laughing ticker going on in your life to see how many people you've actually affected?
Amazing. That's why I like Twitter, man, because on Twitter, like, you could literally, you'll get tweets from people, and I hate to talk about it because then it means now people will do it on purpose without it just organically happening, but still, it's relevant. People send you a tweet where they're like, I had a crappy day, man, and then I listened to this podcast or watched your flick, and that made it better. I always favorite that stuff because, like, that's why you do it. You know, some cats, of course, do it for the money, and don't get me wrong, like, I like getting paid too. I'm not a communist, but that's not the first reason to do it. The first reason to do it is because you're going to affect somebody in some way. You're going to make their day a little bit easier. The way that when you were younger, people made your day just a little bit easier, like John Belushi or John Candy or, you know, the SCTV people, the SNL people, or John Landis, John Hughes, the people whose work, like, made my life a little better. You know, I had a crap day, and then I watch, like, one of the John Hughes movies, and everything's a lot better. You feel a little bit better for a little while. So it's nice to be part of that tradition now, where people are like, you do that for me, you and your bullshit. I'm like, thank you, that's awesome.
A random question. You were a fan of the fact that, you know, I enlightened you to the Lenin's signature being a face. If you had a signature that you could turn into some kind of sign, what do you think it would be? It's
weird. The Lenin signature, we're on the Lenin bus. For those who've never seen this before, I've been on it before. This is amazing. These kids tour around. It's almost like the Partridge Family, but they're not related, and I'm sure they get way more poon than the Partridge Family ever did. These dudes drive around on this bus, the Lenin bus, a non-profit bus, and they go around to schools and cities, and they bring kids on. And if you look around, man, you can see there's instruments everywhere, video equipment, sound equipment. It's normally much cooler, but we had to turn the AC off, the Jenny off, so the AC went down. That's why the students sweating. They bring kids in here, and they literally start putting music together with them. And then if they want, they can do videos. And it sounds like, oh, that's sweet, but, like, that ain't real. It's very real. I literally came on a bus, they showed me the drum kit, and I sat there playing with it for like 10 minutes, and at the end of that 10 minutes, I was like, I think I want to go into music. Like, you think it's possible, because somebody's like, here's the tools, check it out, and it's incredible digital setup. So anyway, we're on the Lenin bus, and there's, you know, Lenin's signature face is around, and he was telling me that, like, it's his actual, later in life, he used it as an autograph, and I was like, it's kind of badass, it's funny, man. He's like, instead of signing his name, here's a little drawing of my face. So if I had to draw, the only thing I can draw, it's a long setup to a very brief, terrible answer. The only thing that I can draw very well is Bullwinkle. So if I could do that as my signature, but it would be confusing for people. Yeah. They'd be like, can I get an autograph? And I draw
Bullwinkle with Shame 1 and Shame 2 equipped.
I'd put boobs on them. But I'd probably get sued by, like, Jay Ward Productions. Like, you're ruining a trademark with boobs. Don't bring them down to your level. I could draw that. I don't think I could draw, but I guess I could get an easy sketch going. Like, I used to wear glasses, so it'd be easy to do the glasses and the beard and stuff. Right. But the moment you got a little cartoony, or I don't know, I ain't John Lennon. That dude needed a cartoon of himself. He was bigger than Jesus at one point, as he said. I didn't say it, he said.
What'd you, watch it.
I get in trouble. But still, with a dude like that, we were one of the Beatles, you could probably rock your drawing as a signature, and people would accept it.
Good. All right, so you just hit on, the mission of the bus and John Lennon and what we're trying to do, carrying on his legacy, giving students these amazing opportunities to create art all around the country. And you highlighted the fact that it's free, which is one of the coolest parts about the bus.
It's crazy. I've been on this bus twice now, and I've talked to these guys twice, and every time I'm like, you guys don't get it. There's no future in non-profit. Business is about profit, for profit. But they explain charity and being good to people. I never understand that nonsense. It's a beautiful thing. They bring people on, they do it for nothing. It's not like, bring your kid, well, $200, we'll keep them busy for a few hours. No, this is literally like, we do this out of the kindness of our hearts. Of course, there's some nice funding behind it to do so. But they bring it to communities where kids would never have exposure to this kind of stuff. But I'm telling you, it sounds, dopey and altruistic. It sounds like a Sally Struthers commercial for Feed the Starving Children or something from back in the day. But it straight up works. You put somebody in front of that drum kid, and I'm somebody who I don't know from music. I can't do it. Never have been musical in my life. But you sit there playing with it and you dial around to kind of the digital outputs, and there's a bunch of different ways you can play. They're not just drums, it's kind of digital drums, so it can put out different sounds. You do that for 5 minutes, not even with sticks, just sitting there playing with your hand. And at the end of the day, you're suddenly like, oh, I think I could do a song. You walk away kind of empowered. That's the Lord's work, man. I know sometimes people go we got to send people to other countries and get them turned on to our religion or whatever. No, the Lord's work is when you move out into the community and create art with other people, inspire them to create art, because that's really the best that we can do. You know what I'm saying? We're a civilization left and right. Everything's been set up. We don't live in terror here. We're kind of in the first world, so to speak. Our main objective, well, not everybody, of course, some people have to work and whatnot, but the main objective, even for everybody to some degree, should definitely be to inspire other people to create art. That's the thing that we can produce. It's our only natural resource, that and come. And we can produce that in buckets. So there ain't no need for that. There's plenty of that going around. But art, man, anybody can do it. And you just don't really think about it because you think about the tools like me. Think about how I'm a guy that creates stuff for a living. Never once did I think about music. And then I sat in front of this for 10 minutes. I'm like, this is possible. So it's great that you could bring kids in here and they actually go through that experience as well. Because I guarantee you, there's some cats leave this bus go with a different head on their shoulders.
Absolutely.
Something else is possible. Now, I also happen to know for a fact, sometimes you get kids on this bus who know way more than you guys, who are just like, thank God, the tools. The only thing they've missed all this time is access. So if something like a nonprofit Lennon bus can come in and kind of give them access to the equipment, that's fantastic. And it's also, it's a nice thing to do. It's good to do for fellow human beings, but it's not completely altruistic. It's smart. If you want good art in the future, you got to inspire people to create good art now while they're young. You got to give them the tools and show them what's possible and be like, hey man, you may not have this now, but work to this, because when you get this, then you get to the sky's the limit. This is the doorway. So I don't know. Every time I get on the bus, I feel guilty because I'm a for-profit guy, and then you come on the bus and you're like, these cats are doing the true Lord's work, whether or not there's a God or not. It's just like, this is what people should be doing. Going to other people, being kind to them, being like, let me help you out. Let me show you something cool. Okay, go show other people. Bye, and moving forward and stuff. It is kind of biblical, but not in that creepy Christian way. It's more of an artist kind of community way, an artist comedy.
Yeah,
we're like the Jesus of artists. There you go. Put that on the bus.
There's that comment.
That's a huge commercial.
Yeah, we're firm believers that talent is not inborn, and that it's in fact something that talent.
You're a firm believer that talent's not important.
No, sorry, inborn is what I said.
Oh yeah, it's not. What you're saying?
Like talent? No, I'm saying like talent. We believe is the desire to practice.
I agree. I mean, when you were a kid, when I was a kid, they used to tell you like, oh no, man, the only talented people get to do this kind of thing or do this or blah blah. You got to be born with these talents, but I don't think that's the case anymore.
Yep.
Man. Like I think if you study long enough, what's his name? Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours of practice thing that almost everybody could say.
Outliers, right?
Yeah. And it's absolutely true. It's become a kind of a truism because it's very, very true. People identify with it, and it boils it down to an equation, and it suddenly makes it seem even more possible. Because when you were a kid, nobody was going, "Hey man, with 10,000 hours of practice, you can be whatever you want."
Exactly.
People were just like, "Practice makes perfect." They never broke it down completely to you, but nobody ever said, "Hey, the sky's the limit." Thing is, if you practice something you're passionate about, like art, like creating music, shooting video, whatever it is. You never feel like you're practicing. That 10,000 hours goes by like this. And then suddenly one day you're standing in front of people who are like, quick, we need art, here's money. And boom, you're trained. You're a ninja who just slides into that position, who's trained their whole life, and you never even realize that you've trained trained in doing so because you just enjoyed it so much. It's something you would do for free, man. If I can offer that to everyone in the world, that's the blessing I've had for nearly 20 years. Get paid for doing what you love. You'll never work a day in your life. It's so damn true. You wake up and you're just like, oh my God, I'm gonna go create today. It's a fun thing. And this is an environment like this allows other people to do that. Cats might never have an opportunity, and sometimes you just gotta expose people to something. Like we're here in Austin, Texas, South by Southwest, which is a massive festival that went from just being music to being film to being multimedia, online, digital, the future, stuff like that. Here in Austin, Richard Linklater's guy made a movie called Slacker years ago. I saw that movie in New Jersey. Well, I didn't see it in New Jersey. I saw it technically up in New York. I was living in New Jersey. Saw it at the Angelica Film Center, downtown in Manhattan. When I walked out of that movie, that was the equivalent of what I imagine some of the kids walk off the Lennon bus with. I walked out of that movie going, something's possible. Like, there's something I could be doing. Because if that dude did that in Austin, Texas, and I didn't know my geography very well because I'm a product of the American school system, public school system. So I was like, if this dude's doing it in Nowheresville, Texas, Austin is not Nowheresville, Texas. It's actually the capital of Texas, and a big thriving arts community. But I was like, if that dude could do it in Nowheresville, Texas, I could do it in Nowheresville, New Jersey. And thank God I didn't know that Austin was like this power center of entertainment and creativity and blah, 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 and the state capital. Because then I would have been like, oh, it's just like New York and LA. You always heard like good stuff comes out of New York, LA, nothing else comes out of anywhere creative at that point. So suddenly, like, this dude being in the middle of Texas making his flick made it seem possible. I'd never thought about making a movie, and suddenly I was like, oh, I'm thinking about making a movie. You bring a kid on this bus, man, and you're just like, play with this drum set for 10 minutes. You potentially have somebody who never thought about producing music, producing art, not just for a living, but just in general, man. I'm not even necessarily talking about, hey, kid, you could parlay this into a career one day. If you're lucky, that happens. But just giving someone art in general, man, something that they could take into their lives. Think about it. Without art, like, what do? We work, and we try to figure out when we can have sex, we shower, and we go to sleep. If we're creating some art, man, that takes it out of the day-to-day, you know, in terms of, like, you think about, how do I pay my bills? How do I keep a roof over my head? How do I get the things I want? Sometimes you got to tune that stuff out, the aspirations of a normal person or of a human being, and kind of reach for something else. Sometimes you just got to play. Yeah. And that's what we don't have as adults, really. Kids get to play, and then they're forced to put it away to get a job and stuff. You got to leave room for play. Sometimes play is literally like, I like to play softball and shit like that, or whatever. But sometimes play is like, I'm just going to sit around and create some music. Yep. I'm just going to sit around and record a podcast. I'm just going to sit around and write something. And I'm not a writer, and I don't know any writers. They may never get published, but I'm going to do this for me. And you do that, and you kind of unwind. You let go of the crap that, like, everyone makes you think is important in life. And it is important to pay bills, don't get me wrong and stuff, but you got to leave some room for creativity. You know, we're not just kind of creatures of the machine. We're not just cogs. You know, we're not, I think about my animals, got dogs, love them to death. So much personality, so much heart. They can't create, no matter what. They may create a mess and create a pile of shit in their house, but they can't create something to express themselves. All they can do is look at you pathetically with those eyebrows and stuff. We have it so much better. We can sit there and express ourselves by, let me put together this podcast, and that's very easy, or let me put together this film, or let me write this song, and boom, you're suddenly like expressing yourself to somebody else, and you've kind of gotten it off your chest. That's good for you. And then communicating art to somebody else makes them want to communicate art, and it just keeps the cycle going.
Right on, man. And maybe the creation of the mess is them expressing themselves. You just would never think about it. You never know.
That's true. Dog art. For years, dogs may be like, we've been giving you our finest art. You put it in the yard and you keep throwing it away. You know, sometimes we...
Exactly. Earlier we were talking about how everything we do is completely free. And absolutely one of the primary reasons for that is a partnership that we have with Avid. Can you touch on how Avid has affected your professional career, what advice you'd give to people trying to get into entertainment, anything?
Avid, for me, it's the first editing system that I used that was digital. Prior to that, I cut on a Steambeck. We cut Clerks on a flatbed Steambeck, but we're cutting actual film and stuff. Mallrats, they hired an editor, so I didn't have to cut that movie. Somebody else cut it. Chasing Amy, we decided to cut on Avid. And Scott Mosier is my producer at the time. He went and learned how to operate an Avid system, Film Composer. And so he took a 3-day course, and he came back, and the idea was I'd sit with him, and he'd cut, and I'd be like, that's good, that's not, blah, blah, blah. So I was sitting there for about, this day one, 3 hours maybe, sitting behind Moj while he's cutting. and I'll be like, try putting this shot over here. And he's like this? And I was like, no, man, like, go, like, just lose 2 frames of it. I said, here, let me see, what did you press? And he showed me. I was like, okay, do this. And then I did it and stuff. He's like, well, you just did it. And I was like, oh, is that easy? And I was like, all right. And I said, move over. And then I took over editing, and I never really stopped. Because it was, again, it was kind of like the drum set. It was the tools that Avid put together, particularly for film composer, unparalleled in the film cutting business, and just not just film cutting. You can cut your own videos and stuff like that. You can work sound as well. But I love film composer. Film composer made me a better filmmaker from 1996 all the way to the present. That's where I learned my craft. I didn't come into this knowing how to tell stories visually, and some people will tell you still don't fucking know, you idiot. And they may be right, but Avid is what made me a better filmmaker all this time, because it shows you the possibilities in terms of all that footage you shot is now viable. When we made Clerks and Mallrats, particularly Clerks though, all the footage wasn't viable, because the moment you pull your shots that you're like, oh, I know I want this shot, and hang them up in the bin, and again, this is literally, this ain't no digital bin or a laptop.
They're like film drying out.
It's film strips that you're hanging on these tiny ass little hooks, and these are the shots that you know you're going to edit together. Now you get your movie together, all put together and whatnot, and then naturally you're never done until the movie comes out, and if you're George Lucas, even then you're not done. So sometimes, you've got to make changes, and we couldn't think about making changes because we would have to go through these garbage bags full of all this unused film. And the notion of like, dive to the bottom and look for 15 frames of a cat, you're just like, forget it, well, let it live the way it is. So suddenly with like cutting digitally, and with Avid particularly, we would go find stuff. You could go look for, you could have a wonderful take, and maybe there's one line you don't like, and then you go back to this half take that you did that was blown, but you still have it, and suddenly that line delivery is perfect. You grab it from there, and suddenly I was becoming a better storyteller simply by using the technology. I couldn't shoot a film to save my life, but Lord, could I cut it. I still, to this day, consider myself a far better editor than a director, and I think a lot of people would back that. And I only know that. I only know editing as well as I do because of Avid. So it's tech that's been, and a company that's been insanely close to my heart, because they let me get better at my art, and control more of my art as well. Because some people tell you, oh, the filmmaker should hand their stuff over to an editor and let the editor find the way through it. No, I'm a storyteller, man. Like, I wrote that script, I directed that script, in a lot of cases I was in the script. To hand that footage off to somebody else and be like, you take it the final step, never made sense to me. It's like, I want to finish this. When you're cutting, you get to like shoot another draft of the script, write another draft of the script if you're a writer. So the Avid technology made me a better storyteller. And there are a lot of people who are like, you're not that good to begin with, but if you look at the body of my work from beginning to now, even if you don't like the movies, visually, turn the sound down. You watch them get better looking. They have to be. And that came simply by using Avid every time. Because I don't think in terms of pictures. I wasn't a visual stylist. I was more of a wordsmith. And so using Avid constantly taught me, oh, I could do this. Oh, I can try this. I never thought about using this. Suddenly I'd go to the set and be like, hey, can we put a camera over here? And they look at me like, yeah, of course. But I was learning baby steps for me. It took me a long time to learn my craft, and Avid was a big part of that. So when they talked about sponsoring Lennon Bus being involved in it, man, I was like, oh my God. It's a no-brainer, man. It's something I can get behind, because this is a company whose tech I believe in with a cause. I absolutely believe in. And, I don't know. I very, very rarely deal with a company that has such a personal side to it.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
I think I've met everybody at Avid. I think I know them
I was just
all.
going to say, we
There's
love...
no, you haven't met the corporate guy.
Right.
I think I've met everybody at this point. They're all really, really sweet.
Yeah. No, they're amazing people. We love... it's been an amazing partnership, to say the least. Okay, last question. Could you hit on how editing with Avid has helped you write? I remember you talking about it. I think I've read about you talking about the relationship between the two. Can you hit on that? How has Avid helped you in what the movie turns out to be? Because don't you you cut on location, right? I do. What I started doing on Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Scott Mosier, we were shooting the blunt saber sequence, which when I say it out loud sounds so dopey, but it was an action-y sequence. More so than I was used to shooting. Mostly I just shoot people talking to each other. So we were shooting, and back in those days,
since I was cutting the movie, we would shoot the movie, and then when the movie was wrapped, then I would start cutting. So Mosier was like, let me take the video tap footage, dump it in the Avid. And the video tap is just like the side camera thing that you watch as a director. It shows you what's happening right down the barrel of the lens. So it shows you the same image you're going to see on the big screen, but, you know, diluted little VHS form at that point. So maybe it was 8mm tape or something. So he goes, give me the tapes, I'll dump them in the Avid, and maybe I can cut together the sequence, see where we are so far. He went and he came back like 45 minutes later, and he literally put it up on the monitor for us to watch. And it was kind of like, this is again 2001, very skeletal version of what the scene could look like. And that I was so, my imagination was so captured by that, because I was like, he just walked away with the footage, you came back with a cut scene. And he's like, yeah. I was like, wait, why aren't we doing this throughout the whole shoot? Like, if I'm sitting here cutting at night, we're figuring out the movie. We're never getting to an editing bay 2 months from now going, why didn't we have this shot? Reshoots become a thing of the past, man. If I could cut on location. So he's like, you can, it's just up to you how much time you want to give up. And when you're in the throes of creativity and production, you don't care, man. You don't sleep, like literally, I'm not even joking. When I shoot, I sleep maybe 3 hours a night, and I'm never tired, and I'm never, because you're just so damn happy to be creating. So the idea of adding one more element to that, cutting while I was on set, while I was done shooting, it seemed like a godsend, but then it was even better because it allowed me to become a better storyteller. I could see missing elements. I could see like, oh, I don't need, like you're in the middle of cutting one scene and going like, why am I doing all this dialogue? If I'm lopping it out here, every scene that follows, I'm going to feel the same way. So you know what, I'm going to do quick another page pass and give out some tighter lines. You know, I love writing, and I love the sound of my own voice, obviously, and the sound of my own voice comes out of my character, so I tend to let them run on and whatnot. But suddenly, when you have something like Avid, where you could put together a scene in 2 minutes, and then you're like, all right, that's one way, let me see if I just took half of it out. And it's not like you're disassembling 2 days of work. It's literally like you make a little quick clip and check it out that way, and suddenly you're going like, you know what, that's not bad. And then you let go of vanity of like, I want everything, and just go like, let me just keep what's essential and what's cool. So from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back forward, I've always cut while we've shot. And in stuff like Clerks 2, we were shooting a scene, the first Jay and Bob scene in Clerks 2. Shot it, and that night when we were done, I cut it, and I hated it. I was like, oh my God, this is not it, man. And I wouldn't have known that if we weren't cutting, and I didn't get to it till later. So I went to the set the next day, and we're still in the same location. I was like, we got to redo the Jay and Bob scene because I cut it together and I don't like it. And then everyone's like, let me see. Sat him down, showed him the scene, and you're like, yeah, we can do better. Let's do it again. And so boom, that film got better because right there in the moment, I could cut it together and watch things happen. It's essential for a writer, I've always felt. A writer-director, take it one step further and edit. You know, there's no reason to hand it over to somebody else. Some people tell you, it's nice to have another voice to find your way through the, you know, the morass. And I guess if you're a director who's directed a script you didn't write, then yeah, having one more person and one more cook doesn't really affect things. But if you're a writer-director, editing is just like doing another draft of the script. And no, I don't know any writer who wants to let that go. One more bite at the apple where you're like, oh, I can perfect it before it goes into the world. And Avid is that. Avid is the last bastion between you and everyone else seeing what you've been dying to express for so long. So you use them as a bridge, man. Not as a wall, but as a bridge. And you got to remember, like, you go back and forth across that bridge. It's not like you get one shot and one shot only. You know, sometimes as an artist you get married to your stuff and you don't want to, like, this is it. But Avid allows you to go in there and check out the possibilities of maybe it's this, and suddenly you find a better movie in there. I've become a better filmmaker because of using their stuff. That's why it's so easy to swear by them and whatnot. And I've tried some of the other stuff, and we don't have to name them, but everybody kind of knows, and I can't deal with it as much as Avid. Avid is so beautiful, so lyrical, so insanely easy to use. If I needed to, I could teach my mother to use Avid. Thank God we haven't come to that, because she'd be cutting out a lot more of my movies than I would. She'd be taking all the bad language out, anything interesting, you know, just leaving greetings, and that's about it.
Awesome, man. Well, you know what? Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to sign off, Kyle. So if you don't know about the London Bus, please check us out at londonbus.org. Kevin Smith, thank you so much again for your time. I hope South by treats you well.
South by is so far, I mean, if only they would hold this festival in like the winter. So you wouldn't see all this sweat, but it's going to be a good fest.
Right on, man. Thank you so much.